Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Mike LeFever. Mike currently serves as CEO for Concentric Advisors, a risk management consultancy that specializes in delivering strategic security and intelligence services. Previously, Mike was the COO for IOMaxis, where his leadership was instrumental in growing and scaling the company, which more than doubled in revenue and profit in the 3 years under his stewardship. Mike retired from the U.S. Navy after 38 years of service, finishing his military career as the Director of Strategic Operational Planning at the National Counterterrorism Center within the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. He also served as both the Commander of the Office of Defense Representative in Pakistan and the Commander of the Joint Task Force in Pakistan, leading all U.S. Armed Forces in Pakistan between 2008 and 2011. Throughout his career, Mike served in Navy and Joint Leadership and Command positions at every level. He led disaster relief and humanitarian efforts, the full spectrum of warfare operations and counterterrorism and counterinsurgency operations. He's renowned for his effectiveness in navigating cross-cultural, complex, and international environments, building and promoting lasting partnerships. Mike is focused on the intersection of risk, leadership, and technology. Welcome, Mike. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. You know, what's so funny is I have friends that work at Microsoft, and I'm like, all of the acronyms and all the titles and language. Same thing with the military and yes. Like the Navy. I'm like reading your stuff, and I'm like, there's so many different groups, and they mean something, I'm sure, to all the people you meet who have served. But for the layman like me, I'm like, what are these groups, and how many have you been in? They do have one common theme, though, like serious, like front lines, baller status. That's what I know.
Yeah. I think every organization, every tribe has its own culture, its own language. And so, it's
you'll have to give me the like Cliff Notes version. I want to learn everything because I don't have as much exposure, obviously, as you and as some people who have family members who have been, who have served. So, okay, I'm going to start with rapid fire.
All righty.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert.
Yeah, I was going to say, for sure, extrovert. You're like me. We're like, bing, 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 bing.
Bing, bing, bing. Off the scale. When they line you up on those Myers-Briggs, I'm always at the end of the line.
Yeah, so am I. Okay, got it. What is a material item that you would run back to save in a fire?
Oh, wow.
That's a hard one, right?
That is, because you kind of go, we have like the special box with all the special documents in it and all that kind of stuff.
That's important to have. I don't have that. I want a special box.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of fireproof. It's something, I think we bought it at Home Depot or something. And so you can put all your special papers in it. It really means something to you because, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff, as long as you save other people's lives or whatever, it's,
replaceable. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, and nowadays with digital, like camera, we can save all of our photos and stuff.
Yeah, which is really nice.
I'm going to get one of those boxes. We'll talk offline on that.
All right, cool.
What is the scariest thing that you have ever done?
Wow.
Where do I begin?
Yeah, there's a couple different experiences in the Navy and training and then, real life that you kind of, wow, this was a different environment. Probably some of the things were, over the war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan and Pakistan, traveled around in the areas and working with some folks. You find yourself in very uncertain, unpredictable environments that, it's your awareness is really keen and you're kind of like, "Ooh, this is different."
Yeah. Do you like that? Do you like that? Like that adrenaline rush?
I do like the idea, or you get used to it. I don't know whether you like it. Do you ever really love it? There is a sense of, when you have some ambiguity and uncertainty, and then some people, can really, thrive in that environment, like in the chaos of the moment or whatever. And then there's some that don't. I kind of find that, I'm okay dealing with it. Maybe it's because, I dealt with it so much, we kind of go back to the foundation pieces. But then, when you're dealt with these, extreme different issues or things, you kind of go, wow, where did that one come from?
Yeah. And you're like, and then you look back and you're like, I can't believe I just went through that.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Exactly.
This is one that I'm just curious. What would the 3 words be that your family members would use to describe you?
Happy, easygoing. Boy, the third one would be a tough one. Hopefully it would be, kind of a whatever, loving father or loving grandfather.
Yeah.
Those types of things.
Nurturing or loving. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. What trait do you feel is most necessary to make someone successful as a leader in the military?
It's relationships, developing relationships, because it develops a trust. I used to say my command philosophy for all these, I was blessed with all these different commands I had, but I said, hey, the top 3 priorities are relationships, relationships, relationships. You can have them in any order, but those are the top 3, because it is so powerful to develop that relationship with somebody, to develop that trust, and it endures a lot to be able to build on.
Yeah, it's funny because the older I get, the more I'm realizing that no matter what industry or even what role, it's so crucial that you're able to build trust and build relationships.
Yeah.
It helps with being able to persuade and influence and get kind of ultimately what you need to accomplish done.
Yeah, I think that's a tenet of success, because without it, you can do a lot of things transactional by transactional, but it doesn't have the same meaning.
Yeah.
That when you make that connection, you're good for your word, you build that trust in that relationship that endures even strains, in some of the environments that we're in.
Yeah. Okay, so what have you recently read or listened to or seen that had any sort of significant impact on you that kind of stayed with you?
I really love the leadership genre. So, in the past, Team of Teams, Team of Rivals, which is kind of an interesting book. I do listen to various podcasts that in a lot of ways about national security or about leadership or about high performance. Really are the ones that excite me the most.
Yeah. Those ones are always really good. And I ask it a lot in the podcast, and then I get suggestions, and then I write it down, and then I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed. I have too much to do. Okay, this one's an easy one, but I'm just curious because I never have asked it, I don't think, in the rapid fire, but it's my weakness. So I'm curious what your favorite candy is that you're going to get at the movies.
Oh, Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh, that's my husband's too. Yeah. And do you have them at home right now?
Oh yeah.
And are they in the freezer?
No, they're in a jar up above, so I can't reach them all the time.
Oh, that's a good idea. Are you one of those people who can allow yourself just one?
Yeah, I can.
Oh God. Yeah, of course. You're disciplined. I love Reese's. Good call. Yeah. Okay, so tell me about you as a kid. Like, where are you from? Where were you raised?
Oh, wow. Born in York, Pennsylvania, of all things. Lived there for a couple of years. And then moved to Allentown, Bethlehem area of Northeast Pennsylvania, and then moved to Southern New Jersey for my high school years, and then ended up at the Naval Academy.
And how did you end up moving around so much?
Yeah, part of the move was I was a popular kid. My dad worked for Hershey's Ice Cream Company. And so after all the T-balls, the Frisbees or whatever you were doing, or bike riding, everybody would come over to our house, and we'd have a freezer in the basement filled with popsicles and ice cream stuff. So he was a branch manager that just happened to get moved around. And so that was some of the movement before heading to the Naval Academy.
And how did you end up even knowing about or taking interest in the Naval Academy? Like, did the high school counselor tell you about it, or did somebody come recruit out of your high school? How did you even know?
Yeah, this is really a dumb luck. It was I was a wrestler in Pennsylvania, in the area I was in. It was a big wrestling. And when I went to New Jersey, I'd go to these summer camps. Well, one of the summer camps I went to up in upstate New York, the head of the Navy wrestling team was there, an All-American, Ed Perry. And I guess he saw something in me that and said, "Hey, did you ever think about the Naval Academy?" Well, my dad was, one of these kids at 17. His parents signed for him to be, enlist in the Navy and go to World War II, and was out in the Pacific. But rest of the family, had different services. But I said, "Hey, this is kind of cool." Went and visited, started filling out forms, fell in love with it, and before I knew it, it was like, "Here's your package, welcome."
Wow. Where is it exactly?
In Annapolis, Maryland, in
Oh,
a
that's what I
beautiful,
knew that. Yeah.
yeah, beautiful area.
And did you wrestle there?
Yeah, I did. I wrestled 3
Oh,
years there. Last year, I said, like, okay, enough of losing weight, cutting
yeah.
weight.
It's so funny. I was a college athlete and also a cheerleader in high school. And when I'd have to cheer for wrestling, I would just like kind of gross out. I got to be honest. I'm like, those mats were just like nasty. And my brother and a few friends wrestled, and they'd wear their big like outfits to try to sweat and spit in the cup.
Oh, yeah.
What weight class were you?
Oh, well, a weight class I probably wouldn't see unless I was in like a camp somewhere, but it was like 126 pounds.
Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
think I was that in like fourth grade. I think I skipped. Oh my God. That was like no eating allowed. No
It was,
peanut butter cups for you.
yeah, no, not for that one. Yeah, that was tough. During the winter time, of course, it starts in October,
Yeah.
ends around March, and then we try to do so, kind of freestyle, so you let your weight kind of go up and have
Yeah.
fun to be able to practice. But
Well,
yeah,
it's
the
good
weight
skill to
cutting.
have. You can take anybody out now. I'm sure you could probably put somebody in a little lock.
There are some life skills.
Absolute lock skills. So when did you start wrestling? How old were you?
Oh gosh, I think it was in second grade.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and tell
we
me
were.
about the second grader to the like middle schooler. What were you
Oh,
like and what were you interested in outside um of wrestling, I guess, in school?
I think a typical kid. You play every sport possible. I think I was pretty good in school. My parents, none of them went to college, and so I had an older brother that he was 5 years ahead of me or 4 years ahead of me, and so watching him, he was a good athlete, but also knew that academics was important to get into colleges and universities. Like any
Mhm.
other family, you always want your kids to do better than you did or
Yeah.
have more resources. So I was
Yeah.
blessed with that to be able to. I enjoyed school. Grew up a little bit in parochial school for the first 8 grades, and then went into public school because of more opportunities and resources that were available. And
Yeah.
moving around, it was easier to get settled in.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm
yeah.
sure your extroversion served you well as a kid who has to get planted into new environments, knowing nobody. That can be challenging, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
what was your idea of success back then? Like in high school, were you like, if only I can see myself, or were you not even thinking about it?
True. I was one of those kids that probably didn't think about it. I was green with envy for people that says, well, I'm going to grow up and be a doctor or a lawyer or, fill in the blanks. And I'm thinking, oh my God, even today, I think, well, what am I going to do when I grow up?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I'm the same way. And I actually just saw my best friend who was literally valedictorian. And I'm like, what kind of fueled you literally, or what inspired you? And
Yeah.
she's like, I was so scared of not finding success. And I'm like, I
Huh.
wasn't even thinking about, I mean,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I'll figure
Yeah.
it out as I go.
Yeah.
And nowadays the pressure on kids is like, they're thinking about it when they're 10 years old. And I'm like, let's just be kids, right?
Oh, I know. Just live life, and
Just live.
life
Yeah.
will take some courses. One of my favorite lines is, expect the unexpected,
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
no matter what you plan or what you think might happen, it's just, y-
Yeah. What's that saying? It's
you're
like
going to be surprised.
while you're planning, God is laughing. I don't know where I read that, but I like that one.
That's a good
So,
one.
so tell me about U.S. Naval Academy, and then how did that experience shape you and transition you to potentially joining the
Yeah.
military?
Well, because at the Naval Academy, everybody has a commitment of 5 years after they graduate. So,
Okay.
like everybody else, you're just going to go, oh, okay. And, you're allowed to pick a community, and it's based on class standing. There were times that I thought, hey, I wanted to be a Marine. I wanted to be a pilot. My eyes went bad. I thought I wanted to be a SEAL. And because of my eyes, I thought, hey, because many of the wrestlers went into that. And I ended up as a surface warfare officer, which is basically a ship driver. So I was on cruisers and destroyers and hydrofoils and had that opportunity. And it's just kind of crazy. And each time, like
Wow.
you said, you get an experience, and it's kind of a fun, because every 2 to 3 years are like giving you a new job that
Yeah.
you don't know a
So
whole
how
lot
does
about.
that work? So it's as you said, it's 5 years. I don't know enough about this. So you join the Naval Academy, then you commit to 5 years, and is it a rotation? Like you get to sample like a residency and as a
Well, going
doctor?
to
Like,
Yeah, as a midshipman, you got the experience to sample all the different things. Some of your training throughout the summers, you would do some time on the submarines. You'd actually go up, and they did put you in a trainer to fly. Were out on a surface ship, and it was really a lot of fun. So you got an experience, a taste of all the different wonderful warfare communities of the armed forces.
mhm.
But then when you sign up and you get commissioned, I went off to school to learn about more intense of the operations and the mechanism and leadership and management I'd have as a surface warfare officer. And you start out at a low level with probably about 8 to 10, 12 people underneath you as a division officer. I was like the gunnery officer when I first reported to my first ship. And then I was the anti-submarine warfare officer, which was a different division. And then later as the combat direction center officer. And so through the first 3 years of that assignment, I had 3 different experiences. You attain your qualifications for your surface warfare. I had the luxury of 2 different deployments to the Mediterranean and the Middle East, and then also had an industrial period where we were rebuilding some of the ship in the shipyard. And then it's
Wow.
just a progression. Then, each change in your position, you'd like to eh, go up in capabilities and capacities and
Mhm.
challenges. And so the next time you would go to a school, a department head school, and then you had a whole department, like an engineering department or a combat systems department. And then as you progressed, you got more experienced and qualified to be and screened specifically to be the second in command of a ship and then a command of a ship.
Wow. And so after the 5 year period, what's the attrition rate typically? Like, do people say, I love this and I'm continuing on? Are there how many people kind of change their mind and decide to pursue a different direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. The attrition rate was probably around. I think when we looked at the curves, I think it was probably about 60% probably decided this wasn't for them and moved on to a different career. Some
Hmm.
people actually changed. There was an opportunity if you started out like as a surface warfare officer, but you thought, hey, later I really would like to be an intelligence officer or an oceanographer or whatever. There was opportunities to what we call lateral transfer into another specialty, which
Yeah.
was really kind of a lot of fun as well
Yeah.
for some
And
folks.
so what advice would you give someone who's considering joining the military? I'm sure you get asked this.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for all the services. And I was blessed later on in my career of leading joint task forces in war zones of all things and coalition partners. And it was really fun to see obviously the experience, the leadership, I was blessed with a pretty good travel agent. Got to travel pretty good places. But the experience and the opportunities and the challenges that's afforded an
Hmm.
opportunity to serve your country, whether it's and for me it's I'm a big person that not everybody belongs in the military, and so given service in some other regards, Peace Corps, whatever, to be able to
Hmm.
help out, I think is very important, and I think it's a neat aspect for people to consider how
Yeah.
they can contribute to the greater good and others.
Yeah. And so you said you were like, got to travel some cool places. Where were your favorite spots that you got to visit?
Oh goodness. We had it where I was on the East Coast mainly to begin with, and then in the West Coast. But because of the Navy, we traveled to different things. So it was all over the Mediterranean. It was all around South America a couple times. It was into the Middle East. It was in the Western Pacific. It was the Hawaiian Islands. It was Australia. It's just kind of blessed, and so I
Yeah.
still love traveling and
Oh, I'm
experiencing.
sure. And you've been married for a long time, right?
I was married and then and unfortunately divorced, and then divorced for some time and now remarried.
And now
And
remarried. Well,
yeah,
congrats
last 12
on
years.
finding
Yeah,
a beautiful bride again. But so how is that? Because I was thinking like that's got to be a huge challenge for people, these spouses in the military.
it is, and that's probably one of the challenges, and one of the challenges for us in the Navy. But now most of the services are experiencing that because of deployments overseas. that you would miss key opportunities with your family. And that
Hmm.
was, that
And
was
just
difficult.
milestones. Yeah. Big moments in
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, I had two children from a previous marriage, and one's now in the Navy, and one's actually a optometrist with the Veterans Administration.
They
But
can
you
help
asked
you with
that.
your eyesight, and my eyesight. My eyesight is going lately. You were saying
Oh,
like
I
not
know.
having good eyes. I'm like, I was always bragging. I'm like, I'm almost 50. I don't have glasses. And now I'm like, okay, wait, I take it back. It went like overnight. Anyway,
Uh,
so I know that in my intro, I read a lot about Pakistan. How much time did you spend there? And that seems like it was a really pivotal part
it,
of your experience.
yeah, it was. It was kind of an interesting time. I probably wouldn't, I could have found it on a map, but where my experience first started was here I was in charge of this strike group. And so for an expeditionary strike group, it was 5,500, I'm sorry, I had a little blitz. 5,500 Marines and sailors, an air wing, probably 6 ships, a couple submarines, and had that capabilities. We just finished up a large exercise, the largest international exercise off the coast of Egypt, where I was the maritime commander for this big task force of multiple countries. As we were coming around, my Marines that were a part of my strike group were committed to go into Fallujah for the elections back in 2005 in Iraq. And at the same time, I was sailing through the Straits of Hormuz, the famous straits where the Iranians harassed the ships and so forth. And it was a time when Pakistan experienced its earthquake in 2005,
Yeah.
7.6 earthquake,
Ugh.
amazing, 78,000 killed, 177,000 injured. 3.5 million people are homeless in the Himalayas, and winter was rapidly approaching. So here I am. So my favorite line, as I said earlier, is expect the unexpected. Here I was, and this caption and I had this picture of me, sitting up on my flagship as we're sailing through with my forces to ready to offload the Marines in Iraq. And I get this call that says, hey, pack your bags. You're headed to Pakistan and we need you there now. And so within 48 hours, I'm sitting in the Himalayas, 700 miles from saltwater as a Navy admiral leading an earthquake response task force.
Oh my gosh. So you led the whole US relief,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Wow.
it was fascinating. It was probably one of the most personal and professionally rewarding experiences. Usually the military comes in, it's the 911 force to be able to help. And so here's Pakistan helping a vital partner, strategic partner in their time of need. So I went in, did an assessment, and we grew to about 1,500 people on the ground. I had Air Force on the runways helping goods. I had over 30 some helicopters delivering supplies. I brought in 2 large, like a MASH hospital. In fact, you remember the show MASH? That unit was actually under my command, and in the areas up in tribal areas of the close to the Fatah and along the line of control. I had a Marine hospital in there, a Navy hospital, and other armed forces to be able to assist and to be able to care and be responsible for saving so many lives, working with international communities, working with the different coalition navies. And the experience was to provide humanitarian relief, which was so powerful, and at the same time improve U.S.-Pakistan relations. And in that,
Wow.
yeah, it was a phenomenal experience that lasted about 7 months. That we were there through the winter time to take them through winter and the experience there. And
Yeah.
it was again, like I said, one of the personal, professional, rewarding experiences.
It sounds like an incredible experience. As I'm listening to you, you said relationships, relationships, relationships. And I am great at that. Like, check that box. Like, I'm great at relationships. I've got lots of them. I enjoy them. But I would not be successful at any of the things that you've done, because I'm thinking about a whole part of this is around organization and logistics. Like, just even knowing how to get all of these moving parts to talk to one another and work and communicate. Like, how did you even pull all of this together?
I came in with a small staff, and as we grew and got augmented by other commands throughout, but it was a part of the U.S. military and the scope and scale that the U.S. military can provide. When you think about it, Here we had strategic sea lift that I was able to bring in equipment into ports. That was the bulldozers and cranes. It was the strategic airlift that brought in food supplies and relief efforts. And not only the equipment, they flew helicopters from around from the United States into Pakistan. 3 days later, we built them up and they were flying relief efforts. We would bring in relief supplies. We would bring in the components to build hospitals and support. And it was just, you can't understand how great and how wonderful it is that the U.S. has that such capability to provide that capacity where no one else can provide. Now, of course, initially I relied on some of the forces there in Afghanistan. So if you can imagine the moment of these folks that literally I had helicopters that had bullet holes in it that flew across the border, was working out of Islamabad at the time, and some of the bases that the Pakistan military was so kindly allowed us to bed down in, to be able to lift. And here they are one day in a war, the next day providing humanitarian relief and exfilling patients to hospitals and medical units. And you talk about the rewarding experience for all the people that were involved.
And the bonding. I'm sure those relationships are so cemented and sealed in a shared experience.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So is it also true? This was told to me, I didn't even know this part, but is it also true that you were crucial in the plot to get bin Laden?
I don't know.
I'm like, could this really be one person? Like, it's like your twins and your triplets. There's another.
No, I don't know about that part, but what was funny is the experience during the earthquake. Yeah. I was wonderfully rewarded by President Musharraf then and General Musharraf, the highest award they've given a foreign military, for the support that we gave Pakistan in their time of need. And so I left Pakistan after the earthquake in April, I think 2006, came back to Coronado, California, where my strike group was, and then was follow on assignment to in charge of all Navy personnel, plans and policy, which was a fun job. But during that, it was a time when we were shifting our effort from Iraq to Afghanistan. Things were settling down in Iraq, and here we were in Afghanistan, landlocked. And so as the issue changed, the idea was, in order to win in Afghanistan, we had to win in Pakistan because everything went through there. And so I was actually part of those relationships. Was they saw me as a valued partner, and they knew what I was capable of, or took time to understand their culture and understand the people. And so I was asked to come back to be the senior military representative for Pakistan in 2008. Thought it was a 1-year assignment, and of course, 3 years later, after the bin Laden raid, I was allowed to come out.
Yeah. Well, then I would say you were crucial in that you were able to create, a peaceful process between Pakistan and U.S. and all of the relations there. Yeah. Obviously, you're not the guy getting bin Laden, but you don't hear about all the different moving parts that go into that type of operation. And
Yeah, one of the neat things, of course, you build in, and those relationships were so key with the counterterrorism, with the counterinsurgency. I would do deconfliction with the coalition forces along the Afghan border, and the Fatah assisted Pakistan and some other things in that area. And then, during the bin Laden raid was kind of interesting to be, to be a part of that was just very humbling of what went on. And then afterwards, of course, here I am, I'm the senior rep. So I was the person that shows the strength of a relationship, that during that, initially Pakistan was like, wow, kudos because you got bin Laden. But then the world really changed on Pakistan. Like, wow, how could you have it? This, how could you let this guy there? And so they felt very inundated and embarrassed by the events. And so it was very hard for them. And so for several weeks, I was really one of the only persons that the Pakistan military would talk to be able to do some stuff and work through it until we got through that really tough time. But it showed the strength of a relationship to through that strain and still to continue on.
Yeah. So I am curious from a leadership perspective, and you talk a lot about the strength of relationships. I'm just super curious about your communication style. Like, how do you balance being the person that's like, we got this, guys, and I'm the motivator, and I'm then the person who's going to inspire you, but also I'm the person who's going to be a good listener? And how do those two things intersect, whether you're in a time of crisis or whether you're in a time of peace?
That's a great question, because relationships is, I think, as a foundation, obviously, but how do you build your team? And I think it's that mindset. How do you get your team? And so one of the key things, I think, was, particularly it showed during the earthquake, and still is the hallmark of how a humanitarian assistance and disaster relief should be run. But one of the key things is, it would have been easy for me, the military admiral, or general, all the toys, all the money, all the neat stuff that really delivered the relief supplies, and easily could have taken over and said, excuse me, I'm in charge. But what was really powerful was, and I think it's important, is to suspend that personal and organizational ego for the greater good, for the mission. And the mission was about saving lives. So even though I was kind of the elephant in the room in the embassy as the military guy with all this equipment, the ambassador was a phenomenal ambassador. Ryan Crocker led this great country team, which is all the unique elements that you would see in an embassy, of all the different powers and levers of the U.S. government working together to be able to provide that U.S. effort to provide support in a time of need. And it was that key. And you can imagine that there were some egos in the room from the USAID that provides the disaster assistance relief, from the State Department, that I actually worked under, because in those environments, they're the ones in charge, and building that close relationship was very important.
Yeah.
But it was also the mindset. We also have a thing in the military we call supported and supporting commanders. And so the idea that, hey, there's clearly someone that's going to be in charge, and it might change through the evolution of the event. But for this time, it was the ambassador, and the U.S. government was the supported commander. And so all of us, no matter what we had, and maybe what's the key elements, was you were there to support them and to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So setting those conditions with the clear mission and goals of what we wanted to do, that mindset of, hey, and everybody can contribute in this, sharing that information and that intent, what we call commander's intent, which is the guidance of what we want to have achieved, and then empowering people to do the job. And it was so rewarding to see that happen.
Yeah. It sounds like you've gotten some really good kind of anchoring, kind of not mantras, but like ways of thinking about leadership. And they sound like there's a lot of clarity in kind of what the North Star is, where are we going? And then also being open and nimble and flexible to expect the unexpected, like you talked about. So given that we've talked a little bit about the earthquake and that being a moment, do you think that time was something that made you the leader that you were, or that like your leadership is actually makes the time? Like, that whole thing, like, the times make the leader, or does the leader make the time?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I was, like I said, part of being in the military, you're in a leadership position all the time, whether it's a small group, larger group, or whatever. And you're blessed with that opportunity to experience it, to have successes and setbacks, and how do you learn from those? And then have great mentors along the way that really inspired you and taught you how to be a good leader. And it was funny, because even some of the bad leaders, in some cases, I think, I used to joke, is I think you learn more about leadership by bad
what
leaders.
Not to do. It's like parenting, right? You're like, I'm not going to do that to my kids. Yeah, no,
when I'm in charge.
I'm in charge. Yeah. So you made this transition after 38 years of service into kind of the corporate world. What led to that decision, and what has been the most satisfying thing and most challenging thing in making that type of change?
Oh, wow. Well, at the 38 years, it was a 3-star, there's about 12 of us or so. And then 5 stars was only probably about 4 or 5. And some of it's timing, some of it's luck. And it was the right time. I had this incredible experience, this incredible time. And then, the last assignment there, working as the director for the National Counterterrorism Center, was fascinating to be involved with creating the policy for our country worldwide on counterterrorism, and working with the White House and all the different entities within the whole of government and the intelligence community to solve this tough issue of counterterrorism and terrorism and white supremacy and all the other things that we're experiencing. And so you kind of go, wow, okay. And now it was, oh, okay, time to go, time to let somebody else have that experience, but also to use those experiences to be able to help others. And so my first foray was working with General Stan McChrystal, who I worked with at the Joint Special Operations Command. Stan was great. And he was over in Afghanistan as well when I was in Pakistan. So we had this leadership company. We would help the Fortune 50 companies on leadership and learning about some of the things that we used in warfighting or in special operations to be able to do leadership and sharing those times. At the same time, I also was a mentor for back to the joint staff and helped brand new one-star admirals and generals in a capstone course and senior enlisted that we had in a keystone course. And I actually went out on exercises to share what I experienced and how to lead disparate formations around the world to achieve missions and goals. And so I really felt, because of the experiences, was something to give back. And so when
how do you like it? I mean, how are you liking it? And also, I mean, I love that I've met you through friends in Seattle and through Concentric Advisors, where you are now. Like, how would you overall classify, like, I'm liking this period of time in my life?
Yeah, I would say I'm really having a lot of fun. And I think what excites me, what fuels me is the opportunity to work with great people, the opportunity to lead and to share some experiences and to continue to learn. And in Concentric and in some of the other places, it was contributing also to some of the national security, because it was a passion that I had to be able to be a part of it. I still am a part of some of the U.S. delegations that work with other countries when we have these track 2 dialogues. But
well, yeah, because you're going to be able to bring, a tremendous perspective. And so tell our listeners what Concentric Advisors does. I know I said it in the intro, but the cocktail party, like, hey, this is where I work.
This is where I work. We're a risk consultancy that does global security. And we have this really unique background of personnel, small company, but growing, that supports large industries, corporations, high net worth individuals. And we give it a holistic perspective of how we look at their challenges of risk, both physical and virtual and cyber security, as well as now, which is really kind of an important one, is what's their persona and what's their image online and social media and so forth.
Huge.
And so that is huge right now. And it's amazing, as we know, what you can find in what we would call digital dust on the internet.
Yeah.
And now, and unfortunately, with the polarization of our country right now, there are some that will use that for nefarious reasons, find out information and allow people that don't appreciate your point of view and want to do doxing or voxing or reveal to people on the dark web or deep dark web private information about you that can make your life experience a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. So give me an example of, like, I'm sure you get asked all sorts of questions, like at the cocktail party or at the wherever you are, of people who are like, ooh, give me the inside scoop just to me as a friend. Like, what do I need to do to protect myself and stay safe?
Yeah. I think part of it was that would be a good one. And, I think some of us, as some of the other folks there from their experiences, but from my experiences of where I served, you get an awareness. And so what I would tell people is that awareness to know that there are many things out there, and the second and third order effects of things that can affect you. But to take a look holistically, how are you showing up online or on the internet, but also about your spaces, your home, your businesses, and so forth. And more importantly, also nowadays is in the cyber world, and having that approach to see. And we'd like to do I'm not a big one, when we travel around in theater with these big caravans, or it was kind of like, ooh, this was not good. It was like, okay, who are these? And somebody's important coming down the line. And so we try to use a softer touch, but if we want, there are times that you want to be more outwardly facing, that you have have a security detail or whatever. But
Yeah.
it is the idea of just cleaning up your online persona to be able to protect you and then give you the sense of security and awareness for your family and loved ones
Yeah.
and for
And
your
so this
business.
isn't just the high profile, high net worth individuals or the celebrities. It's really, this is for everyone.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And what we're finding out initially, we started out with, the real high net worth, they're obviously the folks that have, the big signs, the Bezos, the Gates, the Jobs, fill in the blanks. But what we're finding out now in today's environment, that if you're associated with a particular company or to a particular brand, that C-suite and now many of the other people are involved are also considered potential targets for
Mm.
peoples of opportunity, because you are obviously wearing that brand of whatever, fill in the blanks, Twitter, Airbnb, Amazon, Google, Starbucks,
Yeah,
whatever.
the overall values of that company, or how they may have pivoted
Yeah,
into, making the wrong choices for the consumer that now make you look like you're some sort of, yeah, like a Facebook person could be a target,
exactly.
I would imagine, at a high level. And so how do you look at risk, given that risk is your product? Like, your product is risk. You're trying to assess and protect people from risk.
Yeah. So our mission statement is, we manage risks everywhere to keep people safe. And so in that, what we look at is, okay, what are those key factors that we can manage for you, that allows you the ability to live your life that you want, but at the same time be aware of the exposure that you might have as well.
Hmm. And so what are some crazy, I know you can't get into details because you've got all sorts of, NDAs and these are your clients, but what are some examples of crazy requests you may or may not get?
Um, Usually it's a kind of an awareness of things that are going on in the dark web or the deep dark web, where these areas that is really hateful speech and very insightful speech, or an awareness or an opportunity, or forming these folks that now have a voice, the QAnon, the anti-vaxxers, the conspiracy theories, and others that are really out there, causing people to rally around a cause that may or may not be, sound in any way, but it
Yeah.
does put you at risk because of that. So,
Yeah.
you'll have people that'll go, hey, we saw some of the crazy stuff with the Gates and vaccines in Nigeria. Here he is supporting, World Health Organization to eradicate polio, and yet somebody's talking about, the craziness of what it does. And we experienced that in some of the operation, in the Fatah and others. But for some of our clients, it's just that awareness that, hey, this is going on, and so you need to be aware that that's happening. We
Hmm.
also actually do background and security checks on folks that are working with them to make sure they're have the right folks in their unit. We also have a persons of interest that some people may express, that show a particular interest in an individual, and we find out that they may have a criminal record, and they're stalkers on the web or even in person, to be able to take a look at. We have a
Yeah.
24/7 ops center that kind of keeps tracks of things. We have a program where we'll put on an app, our Concentric app, that gives you your geolocation, and we geofence it, and we look at all the activities that are going around you to be able to alert you to potential activities that you want to be aware of, not go downtown or go this direction, or there's something that
Yeah.
occurs
There's
in the
about to be a protest down here, or there's going to be yeah,
yeah,
that makes
exactly.
sense. That totally makes
Yeah.
sense. And so I'm sure, because now we all have access to data and we can look at it frequently, that you guys assess all sorts of data. But are you looking at percentages of requests? I guess, like, how do I ask this? Like, what threat is most commonly a concern for people? Because they may or
Yeah.
may not be thinking about the deep dark web, and then you're like, hey, wait, this is also something. But when they're coming to you originally, is it usually a physical threat? And then you're also saying, hey, part of our service is you also should be looking at this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We started, kind of noticing, and we had a kind of with the COVID, the economic impacts and the medical impacts of the pandemic, and then this seemingly unrest, and then the elections that we're still going through, that unsettlement and uncertainty caused quite a people distress of kind of what may happen, and the idea of the white supremacists, conspiracy theories, and some of these groups that were out there. And so the awareness is that, hey, you may want to look at this, and we'll help you decide of whether or not you're at vulnerability or at risk.
Mhm.
And then so we'll take a look at what they have. And so in fact, during this time of the pre-election trans voting and now post-elections, we've had quite a bit of support going out for people, both physical, cyber, and intelligence products, alerting them to potential activities that may be
Mhm.
harmful to their business or to the locations or cities. And and again, people online finding out that, oh, Shauna, you donated to this candidate, we don't like that
Yeah.
candidate.
Well,
So
yeah, I'm not just thinking about it. Sometimes I think about it, as a Jewish person, sometimes I think about like the rise of anti-Semitism, and I
exactly.
get super scared. And then I'm like, well, wait, do I make it public that I want to, there's this fine line of like being proud and wanting
Yes.
to, I mean, it's just the twilight zone to me that could even happen or exist. Cause I've always lived on the
Yes.
coasts, where it's like stronger and bigger Jewish communities. But sometimes
Yes.
I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't have anywhere something trackable that I'm donating to some sort of Jewish cause. Because what
Yeah.
if somebody's a Jewish hater? It just makes me scared.
It is.
But how much of that is, I guess, how do you discern as just an average citizen what's fake news and what's real as far as racism? And like,
Mhm.
so many people said, right now there's more hate in the world than ever before in our country. But is that true, or is that just social media, or just kind of people having a political angle to try to make that be the case?
Yeah.
It's hard to know really where the hate or racism stuff is really exists or doesn't.
Yeah. I think in my view, I think it's gotten worse from the standpoint. Maybe it's because of social media that you're more aware of it, or it's allowed to spread instantaneously to large populations, where before I don't think we had that ability to disperse that information so rapidly. So I
Mm,
think we do. I think we're in an unusual state of this polarization, and then this disinformation and misinformation, where people get their news or where people validate their facts. And
mhm.
so it is a scary one. It's a lot bigger than a kind of but it is something to be aware of, that there are many people that consume all their info through a certain source that may be
Right.
biased or
Absolutely.
and so you're not sure. One of the things we dealt with even at the Counterterrorism Center was, kind of the homegrown violent extremists,
Mm.
and the folks that were online, where they would foment the information
And try to
and
indoctrinate them online and get the vulnerable
now.
young. Yeah. Someone
But
looking for,
now
yeah, it's scary.
it's so much out there that now it kind of goes, okay, what is that? And that I think is the worrisome part of the kind of the white supremacist movement. In my words, I kind of said, hey, I think the genie got out of the bottle on this one. We've
Mm.
allowed them to have a voice where they were kind of like, okay, this was a kind of a extreme group on the side. Now it's almost mainstream because they've gotten the attention. Unfortunate with some of the things that we're seeing in the news, that it's almost endorsing their activities is pretty scary. And it's kind of like, okay, now it's just, okay, knowing that and having that awareness is what we try to do, and try to educate people and try to make them aware of where their threshold is, because risk is also personal as well. Some people do better. Everybody follows kind of a spectrum of kind of where their tolerance level is, but they
Mm.
also need awareness. And sometimes when we do the research for them and do the background checks or see what's out there, we'll actually do surveys to see people where they are online and so forth, to be able to present that with them and says, okay, here's where you are, here's where we think that's a problem, but there's also a risk calculus for yourself, that
Yeah.
what makes you comfortable or what makes you feel safe about what to do.
Yeah. Well, it's great that a company like yours exists. I love that you're leading the charge at Concentric. It's a really cool company, great culture. And it sounds like you're having a ton of fun. Um, how I guess does Mike, the leader and the, the military guy, the Concentric Advisors CEO, differ from Mike, the grandpa, dad? What kind of advice are you giving your own family as far
Yeah.
as the intersection of what you do and being a family guy?
I would like to think that they're pretty close, because that's who I am as a person, about, kind of the love of life, the excitement of the moment, to be involved, to have impact, to have leadership and the influence, and to be able to take care of people and build people, and build the team, build an environment for high performance for others to succeed and excel, and have that opportunity. And so I'd like to think that those two are the same, that, granddad is just as fun loving, but also, a character to be able to support, encourage, and have
Right.
those people thrive and succeed as well.
Well, I mean, even more specifically on, like, from a logistics standpoint, like, I guess how protected are your grandkids online, and how much is that like parlaying into,
Oh,
okay,
got it.
I've got so
Yeah.
much information. I mean, I think you, the person, that is a really good way of saying it, that you're kind of like, I'm the same guy, and I'm the same way too. I don't really know how to be two different
Yeah.
people, but some people are, they're like so serious at work and then silly at home. I'm like, why not just blend it?
Yeah, exactly.
It seems exhausting to try to be multiple different types of identities. But I'm more saying, like, logistically,
Yeah.
the cameras all over the house, and lockdown on the technology, and password protected everything, like, or are you not living what you're giving advice to?
Yeah, no, I think we're living it, because there are some simple things that you can do to really, encourage or protect you. Two-factor authentication, what you are, how are you showing up online? How are you, what's your lifestyle? What are you doing to impact that? So, yeah, one of my son and his wife and their granddaughter are in the Navy, and so they're overseas right now in Portugal, and that awareness. My daughter is an optometrist with the Veterans Administration with 2 kids down in California. But yeah, imparting them the awareness, the
Mm-hmm.
situational awareness, and the threats that are out there, and how do they tolerate that, and have a discussion with them about, what they're doing and how they're behaving, and also things that they should implement around to protect
Yeah.
themselves, protect their children, and the way they are. And some of it are getting it from the work that they get, but it is always good to say, hey, these are the trends we're seeing, you should think
Yeah.
about this, more of a, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
good
It's
advice.
like, oh, it's good to have a doctor in the family. I'm like, this is like, it's good to have, like, someone's like super knowledgeable on national
Uh,
security in the family, like
uh,
100%. So are there routines or rituals uh, that you take on every day or every week that set you up for success?
um, I call it my mental health break. Every morning, I'm a morning person, so I get up and I try to get a workout in. My wife and I either will hit the CrossFit gym, or we have some Pelotons in the house that we'll hop on and work out. And for me,
Nice.
that's
I'll
my
follow
mental.
you. I love my Peloton.
I know. We'll have to get that. I'll get your
Yeah. Yeah. I'll
name.
follow you.
All right, cool. And then, and so for me, it's a mental health break that kind of set up the morning, and then, all in and kind of go after it, and have that environment. In today's
Yeah.
environment, I was lucky enough in some of my commands, I had forces all over the world, and so you got used to working on a kind of a VTC. We had a
Mm.
secure video teleconferencing to be able to share that information and get reports. And so I've incorporated a lot of that kind of, we called it operating rhythm at work, that when do we check in? How do we check in on each other? How do we support? What kind of updates? How do we empower people? How do we communicate? So it's kind of a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, the routine for me is just kind of a, hey, good night's sleep, get a good workout in,
Yeah.
tackle
These,
work.
these these things are not so complicated. I mean, it always comes down to, what you put in your body, and exercise and sleep. Those are probably the top 3, at least for me, try to. And then if I'm like extra good, I'm like trying to meditate, or I mean, that's like an extra, like, little cherry on top, or um
Yeah.
detach from my iPhone or whatever it is. But if you can get those basics, you're setting yourself up for huge success. That's awesome. And so my ultimate question for you, Mike, is what fuels you?
Wow. I guess the experience of life, because you embrace it.
Yeah.
It gives you an opportunity it challenges you, it inspires you, it motivates you, it deals you challenges to deal with. There's a little bit of chaos, there's a little bit of ambiguity, there's some uncertainty, but at the end of the day, kind of what's true to you and what do you want to accomplish, and how do you tackle it, and how do you face some of the adversity and setbacks, and how do you get up and move forward, and how do you kind of keep striving, because today's activities are good, but you need to constantly improve on that. And so, kind of this high performance mentality to be able to go after it and always attempt to do, because there's always something you can do better or whatever. And you keep challenging yourself and keep living life to its fullest, because there's so much greatness out there and so much greatness in people to be able to take on the challenges and solve the problems.
I agree. I love your attitude. It's so contagious and so inspiring. And I'm so glad that you were on the podcast.
Thanks so much.
Really, really appreciate it. Fun to get to know you better. Yeah. And I hope to see you in person soon. But in the meantime, I'm sending you a big virtual hug.
Excellent.
And be safe, and we will talk very soon.
Thanks so much. Back at you. This has been wonderful.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.